We are just so fortunate that we had that wonderful fireside to give us a really deep dive into Akis's journey there. Some real big takeaways that I personally was noting down. I hope you all were as well. We're going to make the next session building on that high momentum, but there's going to be an element of dynamism and interactivity. I'm going to emphasize those points because I want you to have your questions ready. The gentleman that's going to be coming on stage is super approachable. I've had a chance to just meet him now. So don't be shy, have your questions ready. I'm sure we're going to have a chance to dive into them. We're going to have Josh Constine come back on stage. He, of course, has been around with us during the last 2 days of Expand North Star, our leading startup event here. It's a landmark event here in the brand new venue at the Dubai Harbour. I hope you've been enjoying the facilities. We are, of course, in association with GITEX Global over at Dubai World Trade Center. So, you know, these two sister organizations trying to cover a breadth of subject areas, bring in the innovators and the entrepreneurs, both people at the peak of their careers and aspiring entrepreneurs as well. So Josh Constine, he is editor-in-chief, or editor-in-large, I think he may have corrected me earlier, SignalFire of TechCrunch. So he's going to be taking this particular session. But what I have to say is we are very, very fortunate that we have a dragon in the house. That should be the title of the session. I'm going to have to put that to the organizers. The title instead is Secrets to Present the Ultimate Pitch from a Dragon's Alternative Perspective. Pitching business ideas, pitching yourself, pitching anything is difficult. How do you do it? How do you capture people's attention, but then also get them to invest and take interest in what you're trying to sell? This is what we're going to all gain insight into. Let's keep the secrets between ourselves. We're the privileged audience that get this insight. I am so pleased to announce here on stage the dragon of BBC's Dragon's Den, CEO of Vitabiotics. He's got a story to tell. He's got some secrets to share. Please do give a very warm welcome to Tej, Lalvani, and Josh Constine. Give them a very, very warm welcome. Over to you, Josh. Welcome, Tej.
Hi, thank you.
So whether you're pitching a startup or just a project to your boss, everybody needs to know how to communicate, how to storytell, and how to share a vision of the future. And that's why today we're going to be discussing some of the best pitch tactics to help you get the capital, the resources, the team and talent that you need to build whatever your vision for the future is. So Tej, thank you so much for joining us today. You have seen such an incredible breadth of pitches through your TV show, as well as in experience doing those pitches live with your own company. And so maybe just straight off the bat, what is the one most important thing to any pitch?
Thank you, Josh. Well, I think there's two things. Is it the product or is it the person, right? And you're trying to battle yourself in your mind, what do I go for? But you really see the entrepreneur, can you work with this person? That's really the key. And do you know, can you trust them to build and grow it? On the side of the product, is it something that excites you? And also, can you add value?
So one of my questions is, at the very start of every pitch, sometimes people want to immediately introduce themselves. Maybe they want to jump directly into the feature set and what the product does. But I always love the pitches that start off with a problem, that make you feel the empathy for the end customer who's suffering from that problem that your product is going to solve. What is your wisdom for sharing a problem and making sure that it really emotionally resonates with whoever you're pitching to?
Yeah, I think that's key, because you want people to not get a product because they like it, because they actually want it or need it. And solving a problem is one of the best ways that most people and entrepreneurs set up businesses. And a genuine solution, whether it ends up disrupting a whole industry or whether it's solving a real day-to-day problem that you need and that is more practical. So 100%. If you see that, you see the scalability of it as well. So if someone solves a problem, then you see how big is the market size. And what I tell people is there's no point trying to be everything to everyone. It's about being an industry leader in your particular segment. Even if it's a niche, it's trying to dominate that niche, using people as word of mouth to get your product out there.
Yeah, what I learned while I was at TechCrunch, I wrote over 4,000 articles about early stage startups, wrote the first coverage of companies like Robinhood and Figma. And what I learned was that you need to both zoom in and zoom out. You want to give both the individual human story, saying, this is a single person who deals with this financial stress that they can't solve, that it's hindering their ability to live their life, to build their business. And this is the specific person you're trying to have that emotional empathy for. But you also need to zoom out and describe, how is this holding back the GDP of an entire country? How is this preventing innovation at a grand scale? I think when you are able to both give the macro and the micro view, you really drive home that this isn't just something that's an anecdotal problem, and it's not something that's just an abstract problem. It's something that is both like visceral but deeply important overall. So I think the second big part of any great pitch is that team, and that, as I described earlier today, the superhero origin story. With Vitabiotics, I'd love to just hear, how did you describe your superhero origin story for why you were the right person to build this incredibly successful business in the UK?
Well, the business, in healthcare and nutrition, you typically have products which are medical-based that have side effects. So the idea is creating a product that's a lifestyle-based product that allows you to perform better, to live a better quality of life. And so being passionate about that industry and about that area, the key is innovation. A lot of people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it's about fixing it, innovating every single day, trying to improve what you're offering to your customer, and getting that feedback. Until 5 years ago, I was copied under every single customer email that came in the business, because I want to see the feedback of what people are finding about my product. Is there an issue? Can it improve? And I'll scan through maybe about 50, 100 emails a day just to see what the market is talking about my product. And then the next day I'll take action and say, okay, fine, we need to make these changes, we need to improve it. A lot of it's by instinct, and you've got to put yourself in the customer's mind. So I think it's that trajectory, by always trying to improve yourself. People get caught up in competitors, about what's my competitor doing, how am I going to stay and have products similar to them. I don't look at them, I just scan what's around the market, but I want to try and lead it and innovate, and then usually that ends up being a leader in the market.
One of my least favorite things to hear in any pitch is when I ask about the competition and a founder kind of straight-faced lies to me and says, we're laser focused on our own business. We don't think about the competition. That's not only just a lie, but it's also bad strategy. I so much prefer when a startup is willing to just list out its incumbents, its direct competitors, and the status quo, and describe why it's better. Because if you don't give those differentiation points, an investor is going to go and do that homework themselves, and they're often going to be going by the marketing copy of your competitors, which is going to make them seem a lot rosier than your much more incisive opinion. So, when I talk to companies, I want them to tell me, oh, the incumbents, this new product is counter to their business model, or they're too slow and entrenched in their existing business to be able to go after this opportunity. And these direct competitors who are other startups, they have the wrong team, they've never dealt with this problem firsthand, or they have the wrong business model, the wrong strategy to go after this. And then the status quo to say, oh, this is outdated, it's obsolete, it doesn't have the scale, it's just spreadsheets or email. It hasn't modernized for the modern problem. And so I feel like when you describe your competitors with that and you kind of methodically pick apart what's wrong with them, you do so much better than trying to pretend like your competitors don't exist. But just back to the last question, I want to know your superhero origin story with Vitabiotics. Were vitamins something that you had taken before and were sort of disappointed in your discovery experience? Did you see people in your life who were confused and just couldn't find the right ones for them? Or maybe you just felt like they were never accessible or affordable to you when you were younger?
Right, so the company was founded 50 years ago. My father's a scientist, he came up with the first formulations back then. And nutrition wasn't really a therapy at that time. Vitamins, you'd see vitamin C for scurvy. So actually creating a formulation that was focused on health and vitality for men, for women. So gradually built that area. And then what I focus on was creating different categories and really specializing, whether it's the children's area. And today, parents are a lot more focused on what they want their children to eat. And so rather than having sugary sweets and gummies with not much formulation, ours is all about formulation and about making sure it actually works. Because when people talk about the effectiveness, that's what's key. And what we did differently was we really went into the scientific aspect of the product. So clinical research. So we would compare our products to pharmaceutical products in terms of the efficacy, do double-blind placebo-controlled trials, and that's how we would create that reputation as being a leader in science, knowing that our products are effective and that actually work.
So what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see that, when a founder does this, it almost immediately disqualifies your interest in the company?
I think one of the most important things is to be transparent in a pitch. And under no circumstances can you bend the truth, because an investor will find out, and when they do, that's a complete disaster. So I like entrepreneurs to be open and upfront. If there's an issue, tell me about it straight away, because then I can help solve the situation. If you brush it under the carpet, then both of us are going to be in a problem. And that's happened a couple of times on the show on Dragon's Den, where an entrepreneur comes in, tries to hide a particular fact. There was one in particular who'd been investigated by the revenue, and he wasn't upfront as to the reason why it was done, but later in the pitch it came out, it became a main feature of the whole pitch, and everything was diverted about that versus about his product, about his business. So I think you have to be transparent. You have to show an investor that you can work with them. And I think it's about demonstration, because ultimately not demonstrating your product, demonstrating yourself. Are you the person that's going to be as resourceful to be able to do everything, to network, and to show me how you've created, say, you've got an article in TechCrunch, or how did you reach out to do that on your own, or get a listing in a big retail store? That resourcefulness demonstrates to me that, okay, this is someone I can back and trust. They're going to go all in, and they're creative as to how to build it. Because if you throw enough money at anything, it'll sell, right? It's about how do you maximize and create value. And that's key, I think, in an entrepreneur.
I think you're totally right. It's honestly better to fail than to lie. If you fail, you can get a second chance. Silicon Valley will give you a second chance. The global infrastructure for startups expects that not every company will succeed, but when you lie, when you're dishonest, that disqualifies all of your future opportunities. And we do our diligence. The fast funding era is over. There's not this race to give the fastest term sheet anymore. Venture capitalists are really doing their homework. We're going to call all of your former managers, your former employees, your former investors, your old co-founders. We're going to find out how you were as a manager, how you dealt with decisions, how you dealt with adversity. And if you've wronged those people throughout your lifetime, and especially if you were dishonest with them, I think that's one of the biggest black marks against you, because it calls into question everything else you've told me. Suddenly, I don't believe your revenue stats. I don't believe your engagement. I don't believe your technical defensibility if you lied about even one small thing. So it's so much better to just be honest. Now, what you mentioned, resourcefulness, being able to actually get your foot in the door is one of the most important things for a founder, not only because that's how you actually get that pitch across, but it's a demonstration of your scrappiness, your hustle, your network. And so have you ever seen some really creative ways that founders have actually gotten access to you or gotten their foot in the door with you?
I think it's about getting someone's attention, and obviously investors, they're busy, they've got their own day stuff to do. So it's about getting through the clutter, but once you get someone's attention, it's how you pitch at them. Be very specific as to what you want, whether it's, or how they can help the investor in particular, and understanding that particular investor, what their need is. If you do research on the person you want to contact, that's the most important thing, and you make it personalized, they will see you've taken the time and that you've really thought about how you can add value to their life or to their investment portfolio. So it is doing that research, having a plan, and being able to relate to that particular entrepreneur or investor that you want to engage with.
Yeah, I think seeing those founders do the sort of the scrappy, creative thing to get their foot in the door always really excites me. One of the first companies I funded after going from TechCrunch into the VC world was a company called Truffle. They make websites for creators that let them interface better with their fans, take payments, be able to actually build a direct community rather than trying to work through the social networks and those algorithms that are constantly being taxed or changed so they never have real direct access to their fans. And what this company did was they actually built me a website unilaterally. They didn't ask me. They just showed up with a pitch in my inbox with, here is your fully fledged, fully functional creator website. And the fact that they went to all that work, even though they didn't even know if they were going to get a second meeting with me, showed that they were willing to do the unscalable thing first. And I think that's always so important for startups at the early stages. Yes, long term, you want to make sure everything you're doing is fully scalable. Ideally, you're using AI to make it that scalable. But the willingness to take those personal relationships into account, do the thing that's hard to scale, but will really show that you're thinking deeply about your relationship with somebody, that you really care about them as a person, and that you want them specifically, not just you want anybody who will give you them money. I think that really impresses an investor. So one of the other big questions we have right now is in technical defensibility. Every startup out there is now attaching .ai to the end of their URL and expecting that means that they're doing something special. In reality, a lot of these companies are just sort of thin wrappers on top of ChatGPT, not really doing anything that unique, not building proprietary data lakes or workflow feedback loops or performance feedback loops. When you do your own diligence into a company, what does that process look like? How do you actually make sure that something is truly defensible, truly different, and really usable yourself?
Yeah, I think, especially when it comes to a pitch, you want someone to be communicating very succinctly what their product does. And the less questions the investor asks, the better. So if you can encompass and explain how your product can add value to someone, how is it different to what's on the market. Those are the two key aspects that you really need to communicate articulately. But in terms of AI, yes, you're right. A lot of people are bolting it on. And I think over the next year, 2 years, it's all about enhancing people's tools and lives rather than completely dramatically changing what they're doing. And there's that friction, a doctor relying on AI to do autonomous work. It'll take time. So people need to understand that tweak of AI that's going to enhance the productivity of people, save people time, whether it's a coder to develop small routine programs, whether it's in fintech or legal, as an enhancement tool, how it can really make them start thinking in a different way versus trying to change their whole image of AI. And that's where the real expansion will be initially. But you're right, it's going to become ubiquitous in most companies.
Yeah, I think being able to actually talk about your AI doesn't replace people, but it augments them is so critical to a pitch, because when you go out to the end customer, a lot of times you're selling to the person you would be replacing. So we invest in a lot of healthcare startups at our fund, SignalFire, and if you try to pitch a doctor that you're going to replace them, they will push back with everything they can. The American Medical Association, these huge associations with doctors, have been very stiff about trying to repress AI in some ways, versus if you can convince them, hey, we're not trying to take away your decision making, your diagnoses, the thing that really make you a doctor. We're trying to take away the busy work of bill coding and insurance coding and dealing with the bureaucracy of the healthcare system, stuff that you didn't go to medical school to learn. You went to become a doctor to save people and to treat patients, not to deal with paperwork. If you're able to actually express to them that you're going to augment instead of replace them, I think you have a lot more success there. Then finally, one of my biggest questions is, what do you want to see people pitching you now? Are there, what's your request for startup, or is there a space where you still feel like there's a lot of opportunity that still needs to be met?
I definitely think in healthcare there's a lot more that can be done. And when it comes to longevity, bringing in technology in terms of customization, personalization, healthcare, in terms of mind and counseling, using AI in those particular areas, especially where language is used. So you have it in obviously in vehicles and cars, but bringing it more into the personalized side of things, where it's more humanly interactable, you'll be able to see that. I think that's going to be quite exciting moving forward.
Incredible. So just to quickly recap some of the amazing insights from our speaker, you need to be discussing your problem in both the macro and the micro form. Make people really feel that emotional resonance, like that they could be the first customer. Talk about your own superhero origin story, why you're never going to quit. Discuss the specific differentiation between you and your competitors and why they are bound to fail and you are bound to succeed. Don't pretend that those competitors don't exist. Take the time to do the unscalable thing to build those relationships and get your foot in the door, and go out there and build something that really excites people, and tell the story of how you are going to augment the world, not replace the humanity within it. So thank you all so much. Thank you to GITEX and North Star Expand. Thank you, Tej.
Thank you,
really
Josh.
appreciate it. Thank you all.